Find the inventor within you. Students will engage in problem solving and creative thinking through invention-based learning. 2 projects will be completed. The first is balloon-powered racers, where you will learn about motion and reactive motion. You will create balloon-powered racers using toy cars. The physics behind this STEM project is similar to the logic NASA uses to send rockets into outer space, Newton's third law of motion. The second project, 3 Little Pigs STEM, is where you will have to build a structure out of certain materials to protect your pig from the wind of the big bad wolf.
Hey guys, welcome to Ivy Tech's Virtual Kids College. My name is Kim Mobley and I'm teaching the Inventors and Engineers class. And for the project today, we are going to be making balloon-powered racers. This is a super simple project, super easy, but you can play with it for hours. So what you're going to need is a race car, a 12-inch balloon, a straw, and tape. All right, the first thing that you're going to do is take your straw and you're going to cut it with your scissors about probably 4 inches. And you're going to take your straw and you're going to stick it in the balloon and you're going to tape the end of the balloon onto your straw. Now, I would say the best kind of tape to use with this is masking tape. I have painter's tape just because that's what I had at home. It might be easier if you split it, but it is very important. You guys can kind of see the straw is in the balloon about 1 inch or 1.5 inches. And then I'm going to kind of pinch the balloon as I tape it. And this part's kind of tricky. You might have to get a grown-up to help you because when you tape it, you want to make sure that you tape it to not let any air escape out of the balloon, but you also want to tape it to where you're not pinching the balloon. And you can use a couple pieces of tape. When I did this and experimented at home, I wrapped it around a couple times. So I'm kind of going to tape at the base of where I just taped just to kind of prevent that air from coming out. And all the while, I am not pinching the straw shut because if you pinch the straw shut, you're not going to be able to get that air into the balloon to blow it up. So that's kind of what it looks like. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's kind of tricky to tape it on there. So that's what you have so far. So the next part, you have your straw taped to your balloon. You're going to tape the straw and the balloon onto your race car. Now, in order for your race car to be propelled forward, you want your balloon to be on the front of the race car. Now, if you forget that part and you put the balloon on the back, it's totally fine. It's still going to work. It's just going to look like your race car is driving backwards. So I'm going to kind of set it up. And this is also important. When you're taping it, you don't want to tape it downwards because as this balloon blows up, you don't want the balloon to block the car or be dragging on the ground as the car is trying to propel forward. So the same thing, I'm going to get a piece of tape. I'm going to tear my tape in half. Now, if you're just using skinny masking tape at home, you won't have to tear it in half. But I'm going to tear it in half to make it a little bit skinnier. I'm going to make sure that my balloon is facing the front of the car. And I'm just going to wrap the tape around the car. Now, just like when you were taping the balloon onto the straw, you don't want to pinch the straw. So you want your tape to be loose enough that it's not pinching the straw, but also tight enough that the straw is staying on the car. And you also want to leave a little bit of room for your mouth to be able to blow into the straw to blow up the balloon. So see, I'm just going to kind of take the tape around the edge of the car or around the bottom of the car. And obviously, you don't want to tape the wheels because then it's not going to go. So just as simple as that. You guys can see that the straw is still open. The tape is not touching the wheels, so the wheels will still spin. And the balloon is at the front, and it's kind of slanting upwards a little bit, which is what you want. Okay, so once you have your car all assembled, what you're going to do is you're going to blow into this end of the straw, and you'll see your balloon start to expand. And the balloon is going to kind of act like the propelling system that's going to move the car forward. So I'm going to start to blow up the balloon. And this is perfect. I'm so glad this happened because I can feel air coming out about right in this spot, which means that I did not tape it up good enough. So I'm just going to add another little piece of tape up there at the top to kind of prevent that air from coming in, or actually not coming in, but escaping. And like I said, this is probably the trickiest part, is just making sure that you're taping tight enough to not let the air come out, but also taping loose enough that you're not pinching and preventing the air to get through to the balloon. So I have it all assembled. I taped up that loose air, and whenever I was making one the other night at my house, I could feel the air coming out kind of at the bottom. So again, I just took another piece of tape and I just taped it up just to prevent that air from coming out. And like I said earlier, this does not have to be pretty. You can add as much tape as you need to keep that air in, because that's going to be the driving force to make the car go. So you have your straw sticking out the back, you just blow up the balloon, and the bigger you blow the balloon, the more power it's going to have. So then I'm going to kind of put my finger on the edge and I'm going to let it go. And you can see that one, the balloon was kind of blocking the front. So I can kind of try to elevate that a little bit more just to keep that balloon from touching the ground. And I'm going to show you another one that I did last night, and I got all of these items from the Dollar Tree, and these packs of cars come in 3s, which are perfect because if you're making a balloon-powered racer, you're going to want to race it against somebody or another one. So I'm going to show you guys this one. Same thing. You just blow up the balloon, kind of block your finger on the air, set it down, let it off, and there it goes. Now, when you're making these at home, like I said, these plastic cars come in a pack, so you can do it with a family member, you can do it with a brother, sister, friend. Make sure you're all using the same materials to make it fair. And if you want to do a race, just like I showed you earlier, when you blow up the balloon and you set it down to race, you can just take your thumb and hold the air in as best as you can. You're not going to be able to keep all the air in, but you can hold it in as best as you can. And then whenever you say 3, 2, 1, go, take your thumb off or your finger off, and then the cars are going to go and you can race. That is it for this project, guys. I hope you all had fun. This is another project that you can have lots of fun with it after you make it. Hey guys, welcome to Ivy Tech's Virtual Kids College. My name is Kim Mobley, and I'm going to be doing the Inventors and Engineers class with you guys. The first project that we're going to be working on is the 3 Little Pigs stem. This is a great activity. It doesn't matter what age group you're in. I've done this in Kids College a couple times from K through 6th grade, and they all love it. They can all tinker with it for several minutes, and it's just a really fun, neat activity. The supplies that you're going to need for this project are Dots candy, toothpicks. I just got a plastic pig from the Dollar Tree. You can use a plate to build on if you want, just so you can move it. Whenever I do this in my class at school, I have the kids build it on a plate because it just makes sure that they condense their building and not spread it out. And as an alternative, if you don't have these supplies, you can use straws and cut the straws into the length that you want and use Play-Doh as well. All of these things can be found at the Dollar Tree. All right, for this project, it calls to use 12 dots. And the reason that you have a limited amount of dots is to make it a little bit more challenging. If you had an unlimited amount of dots, you could build it as big as you want it. But in order to make your brain think, we want you to just use 12 dots. Now, if you do this again at home, or if you want to do it a second time, you can always use more. But for this project, we're just going to use 12. 9, 10, 11, 12. And you can also use an unlimited amount of toothpicks, and the same with the dots. If you wanted to make this more challenging, or if you wanted to do this like with a brother or sister or a friend and have a contest, then I would put a limit on the toothpicks. That way you can say that you started with the same material, so it's a little bit more of a competition. And how this works is, I'm going to get down on my knees really quick, just so I'm a little bit lower to the table. But you would start with your pig in the middle of the plate. And like I said, I like to use the paper plate because it makes it a little bit more challenging, and that's the whole purpose of a STEM project. You want your brain to be thinking. And then the toothpicks, and then you have your dots. So the pig's in the middle, and the whole purpose is to build a structure around the pig that can withstand the wind of the big bad wolf. And obviously you don't want to be the big bad wolf because your wind is not as strong as the big bad wolf in the story. So what we are going to use as the big bad wolf is a hairdryer. And when I do this in my class, I put like a wolf mask around the hairdryer. If you want to draw a wolf on a piece of paper and tape it to the hairdryer just to make it a little bit more fun, you can do that. But that's what we're going to use as the wind at the end of the project. So how this works is you take your dots, you stick your toothpicks in, and your toothpicks are basically like the walls, or if you say it's like the wood of the house, and the dots are what hold it together. I'm just going to kind of start building around the pig, and I'm not going to do this. I don't want to show you all too much at the beginning, just because then your brains won't be thinking. And we want you to try to build your own structure using your own thoughts. And one other thing that you can do too with this is you can draw out your idea before you do it, just like real engineers and inventors do. They always start with a plan. But as you guys can see, the dots are what are holding the toothpicks together. So you can tell the dots, you run out of the dots pretty quickly. So once you have your 12 dots around your pig, you really want to think hard about how you're going to utilize the toothpicks to make the structure as strong as you can, because the whole purpose is for the structure to withstand the wind of a hair blower or a hair dryer. So this is just a little idea of how you can start it. Now, I teach kindergarten, so you can probably imagine how crazy they start to go with their toothpicks. And you just continue to build. Sometimes they like to make a little roof to make it look like a real house. And another thing that you can do with this project too, and obviously being a classroom teacher, I have to do this in my classroom, but set a time limit. That's going to make it more challenging. And the good thing too is if you set a time limit and you're doing a challenge with your brother or sister or your friend, you can do it first with the time limit, and then once you're done, all of these materials will still be able to be utilized again. So then you can just say, you know what, I'm just going to play with them and build a structure and not have a time limit. I'm going to use as many dots as I want, as many toothpicks as I want, and that just makes it a little bit more fun versus being a challenge. Okay, so I have built a very generic house around my pig. And like I said, I like to use the plate. That kind of keeps your house condensed a little bit, because if you have, I didn't even use all of my dots for this, but if you had an unlimited amount of dots and an unlimited amount of toothpicks, you can see where your structure would start to expand. And the whole premise of this project is not to build a big structure, but a sturdy structure. So I did a very generic house just to show you guys kind of how you get started, but I didn't want to do too much because I don't want to prevent your all's creativity, and I want you guys to be able to use your own brain and your own thoughts into making the structure as sturdy as possible. So once you have your structure, say your time's up, you and your partner that you're doing it with, you have both of your structures, and then you get your hair dryer. Now this is, I always kind of have conversations with my kindergartners whenever I do this in class. You have to decide with your partner where you want the hair dryer to be, because obviously if I'm blowing the hair dryer right up on it, it's going to be a little bit stronger wind than if I set it right here on the table and blow it. So how we do it in class is we kind of put the hair dryer at the edge. That way it's the same for everybody, because I've had kids that just blow all the way around and they do everything that they can to blow it down, and that's not what we want. We want the wind blowing on the structure the same for everybody. We want it consistent, because that's what makes it more of a competition or a challenge. So I have my structure, I don't know, I put it about a foot away from the edge of the table. So I put the hair dryer on the edge of the table, I turn it on, and you can see it blew the pig out, which you want to protect the pig. That's the whole point. So I would say, I'm going to do it one more time to show you guys. That's always the best part, to kind of see it blow. So you guys can see the structure held, the pig blew over. So if I was kind of critiquing my work, I would have said, you know what, I probably should have added more toothpicks on the side to protect the pig inside, but my structure, the base or the foundation of my structure was strong enough to withstand the wind. So whenever you guys are doing this at home, you got to think about how to keep the pig stabilized in the middle also. And one thing that I was just thinking of, if you have Play-Doh, and you could probably even just do this with a piece of Scotch tape, just to make it a little bit easier. You could put Play-Doh right in the middle of the plate or a piece of Scotch tape and kind of stick your pig down in there, and that might just stabilize him a little bit better. And if you don't have a plastic pig at home, because I'm sure that's not a toy or something that you guys have at home, I've just had kids draw a picture of a little pig and tape it to the plate. You can use any toy basically to put in the middle. All right, so I've talked about all of the steps and the supplies for the actual STEM project of the Three Little Pigs. And like I said, a STEM project is supposed to make you think. You're supposed to have limitations to make your brain think. It's supposed to be a challenge. So when you're doing this for the first time, make sure that you are only using the 12 dots, because that's going to make your brain think a little bit more. It's going to make you plan a little bit more. You're probably going to take a dot off and kind of rearrange it, but you want to have those limitations on your supplies. Now, once you're finished, and you've already done the blowing of the wind, what you can do, just take your structure apart. All of these things can be reused. You can get more dot candies. You can get as many toothpicks as you want, and you can build any structure that you want. That's the cool thing about this project. And when I do this in my classroom, the kids, they will do this as long as I give them. And even you 5th grade and 6th grade kids, you might think, you know what, this looks kind of childish, this looks too babyish. I promise you, once you get these materials in your hand and you start building with them, you'll like to do it. There's all sorts of different things that you can build. And as we are wrapping up this project, if Three Little Pigs isn't your favorite fairy tale, you can do this based around any story, any movie, any game, any interest that you have, using these same supplies. And just as an extension activity, if you have a friend or a brother or sister that you're doing this with at home, you can give each other different supplies. So maybe say, okay, your supplies are going to be Legos. You have to build a structure with Legos. Your supplies are going to be pencils and Play-Doh. Your structure is going to be built with only pencils and Play-Doh. And then maybe somebody else can have the straws or the toothpicks, and kind of compare and see which one is stronger. So there's all sorts of different extension activities that you can do at home as well. And most of these supplies you might have at home, but like I said before, all of these supplies I got at the Dollar Tree. Just using these supplies, it costs $3. The pig, the dots, and the toothpicks. And that is the end, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this fun project. I appreciate you taking the time to look at it and try it out with me.